Okay, these are a couple of favorite sections. This is the old cops book, and I'll dive into that. The old cop took his assignment. It would lead him back into Takechi territory to all the brothels and the clubs they ran. Didn't matter that he was not in the mood. Even though the Americans said they were leaving, the occupation authorities still ran the show, and the Japanese officer of the law took the jobs that he was handed. 300-year-old families were not to crumble in a day, no matter what MacArthur said. But things had gotten so confused of late you didn't know who they were building up and who they were tearing down. When the body was first examined, the local men on the scene said it had fallen from a 4-story building, not far from the park that adjoined the Imperial grounds. Abandoned bodies, dead or hoping to die, regularly appeared in the park, and the police administered with cool detachment the identification of at least a body a week. The morgue rubber-stamped another dozen, since no one had the stamina to track down every last one. The Takechi clan cleaned house at least once a year, and during those times the Imperial grounds looked more like a parade. The police, rather than risk confronting the very groups that were responsible for its preservation, left the mob and the splintered old ruling families handle their own rewards and punishment. The local police provided the routine cleanup. Although the steady supply of bodies did not amount to an emergency, occasionally a case appeared which woke the daily force from its lethargy and contempt for the profession which they had all but helped to degrade. The body fell from only 4 stories. It had taken on a blue yet poultice bearing which led even a young man of 2 weeks on the force to declare that the body had not died from a recent fall, nor of its own accord by alcohol or other means. Most cases were conveniently lodged as suicide. This case would have been no different had not anomalies brought the case to light. The comments of a zealous young policeman stirred a kind of uncomfortable shame from some of the veterans. "How high was the fall?" he asked. "High enough," said the senior man. "Is the 3 stories high enough to provoke a concussion that spreads to the arm and legs?" he said. He was very naive. "From 3 stories a man can break his own neck, especially if that is his goal. Assuming that dying is his goal, also assuming he has had enough practice, he falls face down and breaks his neck." The young officer realized he was onto something, but he didn't know what. "I've seen 100 bodies come from the park in the last year, the most hopeless, no doubt. The ones unable to finish the job with a knife resort to the help with a 30-foot drop. They usually take advantage of the back stairs because the idea dawns on them in the early hours of the morning." The sheer thrust of the fall lunged the chest through the upright beams of the neighboring octopus stand. The rib cage was flayed, and it too was evidently the work of an after-hour carver. For decency's sake, the chest had been covered by a blue pad. It was assumed that these features would be overlooked when the dailies got a hold of it, so the body had to be properly dressed. None of the evening readers would object on the grounds of implausibility that the force of such a fall could not have done the man in. The police interrogated one passerby, but it was 3:47 and the story held firm with few inconsistencies. One evening columnist embellished the man's expression before he fell, the happy abandon of a folk god, as beads of sweat fell in slow motion onto the train tracks. 2 witnesses claimed they had seen an envelope in the man's hands before he fell from the rafters, but no evidence of its kind ever emerged. When asked why they happened to be looking up 12 stories at that very moment, one mentioned his habit of searching for comets and other stellar traffic from the platform. One said he thought he saw a woman moving behind, hanging undergarments, and was already looking up when the scream came. Given normal reaction time, someone would have had to anticipate a scream some 20 stories up in order to see it. The squad collectively established the identification of the victim. His train pass had his name written on it, Zhang Wei. It was possible for one late-night worker at the central station to confirm his address. Within 10 minutes, the police zeroed in on the man's profession. He was registered as a street cobbler from Kobe. Within 10 more minutes, medical records emerged that solidified a history of erratic acts of passion, one argument in the street after another. These facts, read together with the bleak existence of life on the street, forced them to conclusively report suicide. The old cop returned to his office to write his report. It wasn't in his best interest to run into his superiors before he had a chance to get down to details. Someone always knew more than he did, and he was willing to show it. So it was best to collect his thoughts and get the story straight. There was always another form to fill out, jobs for everyone, and papers too. The death was violent, he concluded in the report, and the deceased likely from China. If the bone structure didn't clue him in, he could tell from the scent. The old cop, as he imagined a dedicated countryman, rejuvenated as he pored over ever more documents, so that by the end the clock reached nearly 4 in the morning. He wouldn't make it home to his family, and the best he could do was sleep in one of the corner offices until the morning crowd arrived. Then he could present the details formally to his superior.